Welcome to another edition of RaceDay Preview here at ConcordMonitor.com. I'm Dave D'Onofrio. With me, as usual, Gavin Faretra. And Gavin, I think it's safe to say you and I get along much better than Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick.
Certainly a interesting scrap between the two of them, both on the track and then off. But you know, I think it was just a veteran sending a message to the rookie, and then the rookie followed by getting in his face afterwards. And I think that was an important moment for Joey Logano to do that, and you know, certainly something that needed to be done because it looked to be Harvick's fault for sure.
When you say that, do you think he tried to wreck him? You think he tried to slow him? You think he tried to send a message subtly? Or do you think what he wanted to happen ended up happening?
I think yes on all of those accounts. He let him go by on the straightaway, which Logano said he did indeed do. And then when he tried to make the cut, Harvick says that he didn't have enough room and that he wasn't racing him right. But it looked to be, you know, I'm not in the race car, so I don't know. I'm going those speeds, but it looked like there to be a little bit of room on the left side that he might have been able to squeeze over a little bit more. But he didn't feel so, and he gave him a little nudge, and Logano couldn't hold it. He did a great job trying to hold it. That was a long slide, but it, you know, I think it certainly was a message. He was trying to get him. I don't necessarily know wreck, but certainly knock him out of the race because he was running a top 5 and he had a great car all day. It's too bad.
I think you brought up a veteran, Harvick's veteran stats, and that was definitely a veteran move in my opinion because he made it look subtle enough and simple enough that, you know, NASCAR's probably not going to come at him with penalties, but there was definitely a purpose behind that. And to people outside the car or the average fan, maybe they might not look at that wreck and say, "Oh, Harvick, you know, punted him or drilled him from behind." It's going to be nice and subtle, veteran move, keep yourself out of trouble, but also send a message at the same time. The craziest part to me was that Joey Logano, all smiles, all laughter most of the time, goes nuts.
Important for him to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think when you see this happen, it's not the first time, it's certainly not going to be the last that this happens, not necessarily between those two, but just in general. Guys, that when that happens, they go at, it's not the first time we've seen them go after somebody on pit lane. And usually it's you cost me money, it cost me points. I think, yes, that did happen to Logano, but I think it was more, these guys got to stop picking on me. Because, like you said, he's all smiles, he's always kind of joking around. Nice kid, but you got to take it to that next level. And I think that was an important moment for him to get out of the car. And although there were 75 crew members for each team between them, he got as close to in his face as he possibly could and pointed the finger at him. And you know, obscenities I think were needed there. And he certainly gave them. And if nothing else, it's going to show that you can't push me around.
I'm not going to say it was staged or that it wasn't genuine emotion, but I think you look at Logano's surroundings. He's got a football coach as his owner. He's got Kyle Busch, who's not afraid to say anything to anybody on his team. And he's got Denny Hamlin, who, he seems like a nice guy. He is a nice guy. But he's also been involved in some stuff in the last couple of years. He's not afraid of anybody. He's not going to back down from anybody. I think maybe as they're trying to craft this team, craft this number 20 Joe Gibbs Racing team, maybe they're telling Logano, okay, you can't stand for this. You have to get a little more aggressive. And so when he got put in that situation, he just snapped.
Yeah, you have to, like you said, with those two guys, he needs to be a little bit more vocal. He doesn't have to be those two guys. They're both their own, you know, person. But at the same time, that's a team that's making its mark right now. They have been very good this year, arguably the best team, even with Logano having a fairly average performance at this point. So I think he did need to do that, and to be honest with you, it was fun to see. I like that kind of stuff. Not only is it good for ratings, but it's just it just brings a different dynamic to what happens off of the track. You see that these are human beings that are driving these cars, and they do get upset. It's beyond just getting the points and the money for that day. He finished 13th. Not a bad finish for him. Probably something he would have taken before the race started, but running top 5, he was pretty ticked, and it was nice to see.
Do you think he crossed the line there, calling out Harvick's quote-unquote manhood by saying that Delana Harvick, who does actually wear a fire suit,
just being
wears
honest.
the fire suit in the family. Is that just an honest commentary, or is he crossing the line?
No, it does take some points away from what he did on the track. He became a man, so to speak, on the track. Then he showed his immaturity a little bit, I think, with that. And it's going to happen. He's not the first guy to say something that he'll probably regret later on. But it was I think it was just simple immaturity and upset at the situation, and he's probably thinking, I probably shouldn't have said that, but the Harvick's making some money off it, making some t-shirts,
sure.
$15 t-shirts that you can buy, and with that little slogan on it. So they've spun it in their direction, probably maybe throw some money his way then.
Yeah, and I think some of that money's going to charity, so everything works out in the long run. Another thing that happened late in that race was a wreck that sent Casey Kahne up on the wall, also collected Jeff Gordon in it. Gordon, coming into that race, had 4 consecutive top 11 finishes, was running pretty well. With that 32nd, though, he falls 3 places in the standings. Is that a reminder at this point in the season how fragile, a chase position still can be? Yeah,
and it's great to see, because we've had some seasons with the chase format that we know who's in and who's out at this point.
Yep.
For the most part, I mean, usually those last 2 spots maybe are still being fought for. This is anybody's chase at this point. So it's yes. I mean, the simple answer is yes, and you've got to put consistent finishes together. You can't get away with a 32nd like maybe Jimmy Johnson could have got away with a couple years ago. Probably could have strung 4 of those together and still finished first. So the simple answer is yes.
Yeah. Moving on to who to watch now. As we go to Michigan, this guy is always in the mix. It's Carl Edwards and his entire Roush Racing team. I want to focus on Edwards just for a second because I think he's up to 9th in the standings. He's actually led 2 laps now, which is not impressive, but better than 0. You look at the last 10 races in Michigan, Edwards is the best average finisher. Matt Kenseth is 4th. Greg Biffle is 6th. This team, in the shadows of the Ford factories, needs to perform well here. If they do, I think that this could be the surge they need to get on a roll, trying to get 3 cars in that chase.
Yeah, and for me, I'm going to be watching Denny Hamlin this week for the simple reason that he's finished 30th, 4th, and 4th. Those last 2 numbers were great, but a 30th following a win. We'll see what he does this week, because I think it's going to be important for him to back that up. Like you just said before, a bad finish can drop you, so he needs to be good again this week.
Sleeper now, I'm going to go with a kind of an out-of-the-box guy. I picked this guy a few weeks ago when he got in the car, but I'm going to go with Casey Mears. Brian Vickers, in the last 10 races there, has 5 top 10s, has a 5.8 average finish over the last 5 races there. Mears himself had a top 10 a year ago, so I think that maybe that 83 team, this can be a comfortable place for them. They haven't exactly performed all that well since Vickers had his health injury that's going to keep him out for the rest of the season. But I think this is a week where Red Bull can celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a solid pick. I'm rolling with Mark Martin. He's been a fairly consistent sleeper for me. I just keep waiting for him to kind of jump forward and anything, top 3, something. And this is a track where he's been very good. 5 career wins, And so I think this is a place that he can get some confidence, maybe build some momentum moving forward, and certainly get himself back into a chase contention spot, which I think if he gets in, he'll be a dangerous guy.
My fantasy team has not been good lately, so I'm trying to think outside the box here. Instead of going with guys who have performed well at Michigan, I'm going to go with guys who recently have shown me something. That's why I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin as my A-list driver. B-list, I'll go with Martin Truex and Jamie McMurray. And on the C-list, I'll go with AJ Allmendinger, who finished 10th last week. Did cause his teammate Casey Kahne to wreck, but he did finish 10th himself.
Boy, that was a nasty wreck.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch is my A-list guy this week. 11.67 average finish over the last 3 years. I've got Kevin Harvick and Matt Kenseth. Harvick, assuming that he can avoid Logano in the race, because we might see some payback there. And C-list, Paul Menard, inside the top 25 over the last 3 years, which for a C-list guy is what you want.
Yep. We talked about Hendrick a little earlier. That's where I'm going for my winner. I'm going with Jeff Gordon. He was 2nd here twice last year. Doesn't have a ton of success here as far as Jeff Gordon is concerned. I mean, he only has 2 wins in his career, which for him is low. But he had 2 top 2s last year. I think this is the year he gets over the hump there.
Well, it just shows that we didn't discuss this, because I also went with Gordon this week, and for simple reason that he's followed every outside top 20 finish inside the top 7, which for me, he hasn't won a race, but I think that he's one of those guys that finishes bad, he finds a way to be better the next week. Only once this season, he finished 26th and then finished 20th the next week, so he still improved upon it. So I think that this is a guy that bad finish, good finish this week.
And we won't be able to make fun of each other next week, which is great. We'll see you then.
Take care.